$61. That's what's left in your checking account on a Tuesday in March. You know this number the way you know your own name. You didn't check it, it just lives in your head now. Your wisdom tooth has been throbbing for 4 days. The dentist's office called this morning, $340 due at time of service. Not next month, today. You do the math before you even hang up the phone. 61 minus 340 is a number you don't want to look at, but you look at it anyway. Here's the part nobody tells you at 25. It's not that you're bad with money. It's that you were never taught the actual number you need. It's smaller than most people imagine, but a whole lot bigger than $61. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that number is for your own life. Not a guess. Not a rule of thumb some finance guy repeats because it sounds smart. Your number. But first, the phone call you're about to make to that dentist's office. That's where this actually starts. The dentist's office puts you on hold. Elevator music. You sit with the phone against your ear and you open your banking app with your other hand. $61. Still $61. It hasn't changed since this morning, obviously, but you check anyway. That's the first thing nobody tells you about having no cushion. You check the number even when you already know it. Checking feels like doing something. It isn't. The receptionist comes back on the line. She says the office can split it into 2 payments if that helps. You say yes before she finishes the sentence. You don't ask what the second payment date is. You'll deal with that later. Later is where most of your problems live right now. You hang up. You sit in your car in the parking lot of the place you work, a dental supply warehouse, which is its own small joke you don't find funny. And you do the thing you always do when a number scares you. You open 3 tabs, your bank, your credit card, your paycheck calendar. You toggle between them, like checking will change what's in them. Here's what's actually happening, and almost nobody explains it this way. Every time an unexpected cost shows up and you don't have the money sitting somewhere separate, you're not just losing that money. You're spending something else too. Attention. Decision fatigue is a real thing, and it's not evenly distributed. A person with savings makes one decision about a surprise bill, pay it. A person without savings makes 10 decisions. Which card, how much interest, what gets skipped this month, what gets explained to a landlord, what gets lied about to a friend who asks why you canceled plans. You are not bad at this. You've never once been taught the difference between those 2 situations. Nobody sits you down at 22 and says the real cost of an emergency isn't the emergency, it's the thinking. Your rent is $790, your car payment is $211. Your phone, your gas, your groceries, you've never actually added them up. You've felt them, you've never written them down. That's the first thing that has to change, and it isn't dramatic. It's a Tuesday night, kitchen table, 3 months of bank statements pulled up on your laptop. You're not budgeting, you're just finally looking. You find something you didn't expect. The number you actually need to survive a bad month, rent, food, gas, insurance, the phone bill you can't cancel because you need a job to find a job, comes out to about $2,200. Not your whole paycheck, just the floor underneath it. $2,200 a month. 12 months of that is $26,400. That number should scare you. It doesn't. Not the way you expect. Because for the first time, it's a real number instead of a feeling. And a feeling can't be paid off in installments. A number can. You don't have $26,000. You don't have anything close to it. But sitting at that kitchen table for the first time, the fear has a shape. And a fear with a shape is just a math problem wearing a scary costume. The receptionist's second payment is due in 30 days. You write it on the calendar. Then underneath it, you write something else. A smaller number. One you can actually move tonight? $20. That's it. That's where this starts, not with a plan, with $20 and a decision to stop checking a number that never changes on its own. 3 months pass. The $20 from that Tuesday night turned into a habit before you noticed it becoming one. Every payday, before anything else moves, $20 leave your checking account and land somewhere else. A different bank, on purpose. You picked a bank 2 towns over, not because the rate was better. It wasn't, really. You picked it because moving money back takes 2 days. 2 days is enough time for a bad idea to lose its urgency. That's the whole trick. You didn't build willpower, you built distance. $20 a week doesn't feel like anything. You almost stop noticing it the way you stop noticing a subscription you forgot you had, except this one's working for you instead of against you. Then your car makes a sound it's never made before. A low grinding noise, right turn only, like something in the wheel well doesn't agree with the road anymore. You take it to a shop off the highway. The guy behind the counter, his name tag says Denny, doesn't sugarcoat it. Wheel bearing, $290, parts and labor. Old you checks 3 tabs and starts doing math with your eyebrows furrowed. Now you open an account. The one at the other bank. $940 sitting there, quiet, waiting for exactly this. You pay Denny. You drive home. And somewhere on that drive something small happens that you don't have a name for yet. Nothing happened. That's the whole event. No panic. No juggling. No lying to anyone about why you're eating cereal for dinner 3 nights this week. A problem showed up, and it got solved in 1 phone call and 1 transfer, and then it was just over. You almost feel guilty about how easy it was. Like you got away with something. You didn't get away with anything. You paid for this moment 3 months ago, $20 at a time, without knowing exactly which emergency it was for. That's the part people miss when they talk about emergency funds. You're not saving for a specific problem. You're saving for the version of you who doesn't have to be afraid of problems in general. Here's the number that matters more than the balance. A study came out a while back. The kind of finding that gets 1 headline and then everyone forgets it, saying a huge share of adults in this country couldn't cover a $400 surprise without borrowing or selling something. Not because they're careless. Because nobody ever showed them the gap between a bill and a crisis. The gap is usually just a separate account with something sitting in it. Your notification tonight reads differently from it did in March. Same bank app, same little buzz on your phone. But in March, that number was a warning. Tonight, it's just information. You glance at it and go back to eating dinner. That's the entire shift at this level. Not the amount. What the number is allowed to do to you. You're not rich. $940 minus Denny's bill leaves you with $650. You're still splitting a dentist bill into 2 payments. You still check your main account before buying groceries. But something got quieter. Not louder, quieter. And quiet, it turns out, is the first real sign that something's working. You keep the $20 going, you don't raise it yet, you don't need to. Some things just need time to keep doing what they're already doing. 6 months in now. The transfer's gone up once, from $20 to $35. After a small raise, you almost didn't notice landing in your account. You didn't spend the raise. You redirected it before it had a chance to become a habit of its own. You're sitting on your couch on a Sunday, going through your bank statement out of boredom more than discipline, and you see it. $49 a month, same day every month. To a gym you went to twice in January and never again. You don't remember canceling other things you tried and failed at. You remember this one because it's still charging you for a version of yourself that only existed for 2 weeks. You cancel it. Takes 4 minutes and an argument with a chatbot that keeps offering you a discount to stay. You say no 3 times before it lets you go. $49 doesn't sound like anything on its own, but you redirect it. Same as the raise, same as the $20 from level 2. And now you're moving $84 a week without your day-to-day life looking any different at all. Same apartment, same groceries, same everything, except a little more of your paycheck has somewhere to go before you can spend it on nothing in particular. Here's the thing nobody warns you about, and it's worth sitting with for a second. This stretch, the one you're in right now, is the most boring part of the entire process, and it's also the part where most people quit. Not because it's hard, because it's invisible. Nothing dramatic happens. No emergency shows up to prove the fund is working. You just move money, week after week, and the number goes up by amounts too small to feel. You check the account less now, not because you stopped caring, because there's nothing new to see. Same as yesterday, plus a little. Then one Thursday, you actually add it up. Your fund crosses $2,200. That's the number from the kitchen table, back in level 1. 1 month. 1 full month of rent, groceries, gas, insurance, the phone bill, covered, sitting there, not doing anything, which is exactly its job. You don't tell anyone. Who would you even tell? I have 1 month saved isn't a sentence that means anything to somebody who isn't watching their own numbers the way you've started watching yours. Your coworker Priya mentions she's stressed about her car registration coming due. You almost open your mouth to say something, and then you don't, because you remember what it felt like when the version of you from 6 months ago would have heard advice like this and felt worse, not better. You just say that sucks. And you mean it. That's a small thing you notice about yourself now. You used to compare your numbers to everyone else's spending. Now you just quietly notice the gap between people who have a place for surprises to land and people who don't. You're not better than Priya. You just started 3 months before she did, on a Tuesday, over a wisdom tooth. The notification on your phone tonight, the one that used to make your stomach drop in March, you don't even open the app to check it anymore. You get a push alert that says your balance has been updated. You already know roughly what it says. That's new. That's the actual milestone, more than the dollar figure. Not knowing the number by heart out of fear, not needing to. 1 month down. 11 to go. If you're still chasing the number from the kitchen table. But you're not thinking about 11 months tonight, you're thinking about nothing actually. Which, it turns out, is the whole point. This is the part of the story where nothing happens for a while. That's not a warning, that's the actual content of this level. You're at $6,600 now. 3 months of covered ground. The transfer's still going out every payday. $84 a week, same as before, plus whatever's left over some months when you don't eat out. Nobody's watching this. There's no scoreboard. You update a number in a notes app on your phone once a month, and that's the only ceremony involved. Your friend Marisol texts about a weekend trip. 3 of you splitting an Airbnb a few hours out, someone's cousin's wedding, should be fun. $220 for your share, plus gas, plus whatever you spend once you're there. Old you would have said yes on reflex and figured out the math later. Probably badly. You look at the number. Then you look at the transfer schedule, then you say you can't make it this time. Marisol doesn't push, she just says, no worries, next time. But you notice something in the 3-dot typing bubble that appears and disappears twice before her message comes through. A small hesitation. You've said no to 4 things this year that you would have said yes to without thinking 18 months ago. Nobody's mad about it, nobody says anything about it directly. But you feel a distance opening up that has nothing to do with anyone being upset with you. Here's the part that doesn't get said enough about this stage, and it's worth being honest about instead of pretending it doesn't sting. Building something quiet and invisible while people around you are living out loud creates a specific kind of loneliness. Not the dramatic kind, the kind where you're standing in the same group chat, same friend group, same weekend plans, but you're making a different set of decisions than everyone else, and nobody can see why. Because the reason is a number in an account they've never seen and wouldn't think to ask about. You're not sacrificing your whole life. You still go out, you still buy the birthday gift and still cover your share of dinner most weeks. This isn't about becoming a person who says no to everything. It's about a specific kind of no. The ones attached to costs you can't fully explain without sounding like you're lecturing somebody who didn't ask for a lecture. Nobody claps for the trip you didn't take. Nobody claps for the gym membership you canceled 4 months ago. Or the $20 you moved on a Tuesday when your tooth hurt. There is no audience for this. There was never going to be one. That's actually the rule worth sitting with, so sit with it. Nobody claps for a transfer that happens on the same day every single month. The whole thing works because it's boring enough that you stop thinking about it, and boring enough that nobody else notices it either. You skip the wedding trip. You watch 3 photos land in the group chat 2 weekends later. Someone's cousin in a dress, a lake in the background, Marisol's arm around somebody you don't recognize. You don't feel jealous exactly. You feel something closer to standing at a slightly different angle to your own life than you used to. Not worse, just different. Then, on a random Wednesday, that means nothing to anyone but you. Your Notes app number crosses $6,600. 3 months. A quarter of the way to the number from that kitchen table. You don't tell Marisol. You don't tell anyone. You close the app and go make dinner. And that, it turns out, is exactly what this level is supposed to feel like. Not a celebration, just a Wednesday that happened to matter, that nobody else will ever know mattered at all. Almost a year has passed since the dentist's office put you on hold. You're 26 now. The transfer's up to $110 a week. A small raise in June, a tax refund in April that went straight into the account instead of into a new phone you didn't need. $13,200. 6 months of covered ground, sitting quiet in a bank 2 towns over. Then on a Monday that starts like every other Monday, your manager asks you to stay 5 minutes after the morning meeting. The warehouse is restructuring, not everyone, just your shift and 2 others. She's kind about it, in the way people are kind when they've had to say the same sentence to 4 people already that morning. Your last day is in 3 weeks. There's a small severance, not much. Enough for maybe 10 days if you're careful. You walk out to the parking lot and you sit in your car. Same as that Tuesday over a year ago, phone in your hand. You spend the drive home waiting to panic. It never comes. That surprises you more than losing the job. You open the banking app instead. 1 tab this time, not 3. $13,200, right where you left it. Here's what that number actually buys you, and it isn't the money itself. It's time to think clearly, instead of desperately. 6 months of runway means you don't have to take the first offer that shows up on a job board at midnight out of panic. You can be slow. You can ask about the schedule before you say yes. You can turn down the warehouse 2 exits over that pays less and treats people worse because you're not choosing between that job and rent. Your old coworker Denny, different Denny, not the mechanic, the one who ran the loading dock, got laid off the same week you did. He was making $4,000 more a year than you. Nicer truck, newer phone. He posted about it online, upbeat, onward and upward. The kind of caption people write when they're trying to convince themselves, along with everyone else. 3 weeks later, you hear he had to move back in with his parents for a few months. Not because he made worse decisions than you. Because his money had somewhere to go every single month. The truck payment, a phone plan he never downgraded, and none of it had anywhere to land when the paycheck stopped. He wasn't reckless. He just never built the version of this account you've been building for a year, without telling anybody. You don't feel superior about this. You feel something quieter and more useful. You feel like you finally understand what all those months of $84, then $110, were actually protecting you from. Not the emergency, the forced decision made from fear instead of from choice. 2 job offers will come in over the next 5 weeks. One pays more and starts immediately, a bigger warehouse 40 minutes further out, a schedule that changes week to week without much notice. The other pays about the same as before, is closer to home, has steady hours, and has a manager who answers your questions honestly during the interview instead of dodging them. Old you takes the first one, not because it's better, because you couldn't afford to wait and see which one actually was. You take the second one. That's the whole level, really. Not a dramatic rescue, not a headline, just a decision made slowly instead of quickly. Made from a place of having options instead of having none. The severance runs out around week 4. You don't touch the emergency fund at all. You didn't need to this time. That's not luck. That's 6 months of $110 a week, moved automatically by someone who never once felt like they were doing anything impressive. You start the new job on a Tuesday. Same day of the week as the dentist's office. Over a year ago now. You don't think about that until you're driving home. And when you do, you don't feel anything dramatic about it. Just a kind of settled quiet that the version of you from that parking lot would not have recognized as anything, because it doesn't feel like winning, It just feels like nothing bad happened, which it turns out is the entire goal. You're 27 now. The new job worked out. Steady hours, a manager who actually answers questions honestly, same as she did in the interview. The transfer's still going, $110 a week, same as it's been since the layoff, because you never raised it again after that. You didn't need to prove anything to yourself anymore. It just kept running. $19,800. 9 months covered. You're closer to the number from that kitchen table than you've ever been. Here's where a new kind of decision shows up, and it's one nobody explained to you back at the start. Your money's been sitting in a regular savings account this whole time, the one at the bank 2 towns over. You check the interest it earned last year out of curiosity more than anything. $11. On almost $20,000 sitting there for a year, it earned $11. You sit with that number longer than you expect to. $11. You ask around a little, and you find out there's a difference between a regular savings account and something called a high-yield savings account. Same government protection. Insured the exact same way up to $250,000 per person, so this isn't a riskier place to put money. It's just a different building. Most of these accounts live online instead of on a street corner. And because the bank isn't paying rent on a branch, it hands some of that savings back to you as a better rate. You move the money. Takes about 15 minutes and a little bit of paperwork that you can do on your lunch break. The new account is paying something over 4% instead of a fraction of 1%. Same $20,000, sitting exactly as still as it was before, now earning somewhere around $800 a year instead of $11. Nothing about your risk changed. Nothing about your effort changed. You just stopped leaving money on a table you didn't know existed. This is also the point where you get your first real temptation, and it's worth naming honestly instead of pretending it doesn't happen. A friend of a friend at a barbecue in July tells you about a stock he's up 40% on this year. He's not lying. He's also not telling you about the 2 stocks he lost money on that he doesn't bring up. You feel a small pull, the same pull that made you almost say yes to the wedding trip back at level 4, to move some of this fund somewhere it might grow faster. You don't. This money has one job. Its job is to be there, in full, on the worst week of your life, whenever that week happens to land. Money that might be worth 20% less than the exact week you lose your job isn't emergency money anymore. It's just risk, dressed up and given a safer name. The market doesn't know or care when your car breaks down. It can be done the same week you need the cash most. And that's a coincidence you never want to test. So the fund stays in cash, just smarter cash than it was a year ago. Later, once this is fully built, there's a real conversation to have about where money beyond it can grow. Not now, not this account. This one just needs to be boring, and there when you need it. You keep going. 10 months, then 11. Somewhere past the 11-month mark, you stop checking the balance every week and start checking it maybe once a month, the way you'd check the oil in a car that's been running fine for a while. Not out of neglect, out of trust that it's doing what it's supposed to do without your supervision. The push notification on your phone tonight says your balance has been updated. You glance at it, see a number close enough to $24,000, and you go back to whatever you were doing. A year and a half ago, that same notification would have made your stomach drop before you even opened the app. Tonight, it's just Tuesday. You're 28. It's a Wednesday, nothing marks it as different from any other Wednesday, and you open the Notes app where you've been tracking this number for almost 2 years now. $26,400. The number from the kitchen table. The one that scared you back when it was just ink on a calendar next to a dentist bill. You sit with it for a second, the way you used to sit with the fear before you had anything behind it. Nothing about today is different. You still go to work. You still split a bill with friends this weekend. Your car is older now, not newer. You never upgraded it because there was never a reason to, once the fund was doing its job. But something underneath all of it has changed. in a way that's hard to point to directly. Here's the part almost nobody talks about, and it's the actual reason any of this mattered. The money was never really the point. What you built alongside the money is the point, and it doesn't show up on a bank statement. Your manager offered you a promotion last month, more hours. A boss two people have already warned you about. Old you would have said yes on the spot, out of fear that saying no meant there'd never be another offer. You ask 3 questions instead. Then you say no. It's the first time turning something down has felt like a choice instead of a risk. That's the compounding nobody explains when they talk about emergency funds. Everyone talks about the interest, the 4%, the $800 a year instead of 11. That part's real, but it's the smaller part. The bigger part is that a year of runway doesn't just protect you from disaster. It changes the shape of every decision that isn't a disaster too. You think about Denny sometimes. Not the mechanic, the other one from the layoff. Last time you heard, he was back on his feet, new job, doing fine. You don't think about him because you're better than him. You think about him because the gap between the two of you was never about who was smarter or who worked harder. It was about who had a place for money to land before the money was needed and who didn't. That gap is quiet. Nobody sees it from the outside. It only shows up on the one day it matters, and by then it's too late to build. You still get the push notification when your balance updates. You still don't open the app most nights, not because you stopped caring about the money, because the money finally stopped being the main character in your life, which was the entire point of building it in the first place. 12 months. $26,400. A number that used to be a wall you couldn't see over, and now it's just a fact, sitting quietly in the background of a Wednesday, doing exactly what it was built to do. Somewhere tonight, in a different city, a different 25-year-old sits in a car in a parking lot. Their phone screen shows $61. Somewhere behind them, a phone is ringing with a bill they didn't expect. They don't know yet that the number scaring them isn't the real problem. They don't know that a smaller number moved on purpose, on the same day every month, is the only thing that will ever make that phone call feel different. They will. It just starts the same way it always does, quietly, $20 at a time.